Hey everyone, so here's the deal. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and right now I'm stuck in a situation that's making me rethink everything I thought I knew about family, forgiveness, and just looking out for myself. My stepsister, Emily, she's 30, who made my younger years absolutely miserable, turned up at my door yesterday with all her stuff, asking me to let her stay. I'm honestly torn and could use some outside opinions on whether I'm right to say no, or if I'm just holding on to old grudges. Quick backstory. My mom passed away when I was 8. It was a really hard time, and my dad pretty much drowned himself in work. I'd often find him late at night, passed out at the kitchen table with an empty whiskey glass. When I was 10, things shifted again. Dad announced he was remarrying a woman named Susan. Susan seemed nice enough at first, always showering me with little gifts like books, hair clips, and even a silver locket once that I absolutely loved. But then there was Emily, Susan's daughter, and she completely changed my world, and not in a good way. Emily was the picture-perfect social butterfly. She lit up every room she walked into, charming everyone, including our parents. Me? I was shy and preferred my books. Having a sister sounded awesome at first. I had these dreams of late-night chats and sharing secrets. How wrong I was. From the moment they moved in, Emily claimed the bigger bedroom because she was older. When I complained to Dad, he just brushed it off, saying it was to help her adjust. And that was just the start. Emily would accidentally break my stuff or take my clothes without asking, always with a sweet smile and a fake apology that fooled our parents. Whenever I tried to tell Dad or Susan, Emily would act like I was the bad guy, leaving me looking like the jealous stepsister. But it wasn't just at home. At school, Emily's popularity gave her a twisted kind of power. She spread nasty rumors about me and excluded me from her birthday parties, making my school life hell. When I'd come home in tears, Susan would just pat my head and say it must have been a mistake. Emily wouldn't do that on purpose, right? But she did, over and over again. When I was 13, I found a bit of solace in the school choir. I loved to sing. But then Emily decided to join too, and suddenly, she got all the solos I had worked so hard for. At home, she'd mock my singing until I was too embarrassed to practice anymore. Dad just brushed it off as typical sisterly teasing, but it wasn't just teasing, it was tearing me apart bit by bit. The worst thing she did happened when I was 15. I confided in her about a crush I had on a boy named Steve, hoping it would bring us closer. Instead, she used it to humiliate me. She convinced Steve to ask me out as a joke, and when he publicly revealed it was all a prank, I was devastated. When I tried to tell Dad and Susan, Emily beat me to it and spun the story to paint herself as the victim just trying to help. They took her side, of course, making me feel even worse. This pattern continued all through our teens. Emily got the family car despite her reckless behavior, while I was deemed not responsible enough. Her slipping grades were excused because she was so busy, but my B's got me grounded. Even our achievements weren't treated the same. Her cheerleading got a huge party, but my state writing competition win barely got a nod. All of this favoritism took a heavy toll on me. I developed severe anxiety and depression, and am still working through it all in therapy today. There were days I couldn't even get out of bed, paralyzed by the fear of dealing with more of her cruelty. And now she's at my door, homeless and expecting me to take her in. Part of me feels like I should be the bigger person, but another part of me screams that I've had enough of her crap. What would you do? So, back in the day, my grades started tanking because of all the bullying from Emily, and our parents just didn't seem to care. I pulled away from the few friends I had and started thinking maybe Emily was right, that it was all my fault. There was this one night that was particularly rough. Emily had accidentally deleted a term paper I'd been slaving over for weeks. That night, I finally broke down and spilled everything to Dad, sobbing my heart out. I told him about all the years of Emily's bullying, how isolated I felt, and that I constantly felt like the loser in my own home. For a moment, I thought I saw some concern, guilt, or maybe even anger in his eyes. But then Emily walked in, playing the innocent card, asking what was wrong, and just like that, Dad's face softened. He basically told me to back up my work and dismissed everything else, saying we were both stressed with school. At that point, I tuned out. It was clear that no matter what, Emily was the golden child, and I was the troublemaker. This whole dynamic was set in stone years ago, and nothing I said or did was going to change it. When I turned 18, college became my escape plan. I applied to schools as far away as I could, desperate for a fresh start. The day I left for college felt like I could finally breathe again. I promised myself I'd never let anyone have that kind of power over me again. The last decade has been all about building a life away from that toxic environment. It hasn't been a walk in the park. Those scars from years of emotional abuse and favoritism don't just disappear. Therapy has been a huge part of my journey, helping me rebuild my self-esteem, learn to trust people, and believe that I deserve happiness. I've made friends who accept me, found a career I love, and even started a small side business selling my artwork online, something Emily used to mock and our parents dismissed as just a cute hobby. Every little success feels like a win, a step away from the scared, insecure kid I used to be. Since leaving for college, I've mostly stayed away from Emily. We only see each other at family gatherings, and even then, it's cold civility. Those encounters are always tense, with Emily making passive-aggressive comments about my appearance, job, or lack of a serious relationship. I've learned to let these comments slide, but they still hurt, reminding me of the vulnerable girl I used to be. My relationship with Dad and Susan is strained too. We talk occasionally, but it's all surface level. They still don't get why I keep my distance, and I've stopped trying to explain. It's easier to keep them at arm's length than to constantly relive their betrayal. Over the years, I've heard bits and pieces about Emily's life through the family grapevine. Apparently, she hasn't had it easy either. A string of failed relationships, bouncing from one job to another, always blaming others for her problems. Part of me thinks it's karma, though I try not to dwell on it too much. Another part of me wonders if Emily's struggles are partly because of how she was raised, always being told she was perfect and never facing consequences. Now, here's where things get interesting. Last night, there was some frantic knocking at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was immediately on edge. When I opened the door, there was Emily, looking nothing like the put-together image she usually presents. Her mascara was running, her clothes were rumpled, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Before I could even wrap my head around it, she launched into this tearful explanation about losing her job. Something about a disagreement with her boss, and getting kicked out by her boyfriend of 6 months for being too high maintenance. With our parents off on a European tour, Emily claimed I was her last hope and begged me to let her stay for a few weeks until she could get back on her feet. She apologized for the way she treated me when we were younger and promised she'd changed, saying she wanted to make things right between us. I was skeptical. Emily has always been manipulative, and this wouldn't be the first time she pretended to be remorseful to get what she wanted. But another part of me felt a pang of guilt. She did look genuinely desperate, and despite everything, she is family. The little girl inside me, who always hoped for a real sister, whispered that maybe this was the chance. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably just a few minutes, I made my decision. I told Emily, as gently but firmly as I could, that I couldn't take her in. I explained that our past was too painful, and that I wasn't in a position to risk my mental health or the stability I'd worked so hard to achieve. I offered to help her find a shelter or temporary housing, even offering to pay for a few nights at a hotel while she figured things out, but I stood firm on not letting her into my home. The change in Emily's demeanor was instant. The tears stopped, and her face hardened into that familiar sneer. She lashed out, calling me selfish and heartless, accusing me of holding on to childish grudges and not being able to forgive. Her words brought back a flood of memories, all the time she'd switch from sweet to vicious in an instant. In the blink of an eye, Emily left, leaving me both confused and hurt. Just before she stormed off, she threatened to tell our entire family that I had abandoned her during her time of need. She even went on about how I'd regret this, and that karma would come for me just like it had for her. As I watched her drag her suitcases down the hallway, I felt a weird mix of relief and guilt wash over me. Now, here I am, sitting alone in my quiet apartment, questioning my decision. On one hand, I feel justified in protecting myself and the life I've built. I think about all the progress I've made in therapy, how hard I've worked to create a peaceful, drama-free life. Letting Emily in feels like it would be a betrayal of all that progress, a step backward into the chaos and pain of my past. So, I tried to explain that while I didn't wish Emily any harm, I just couldn't be her savior. I wrote, "I hope you get this, but I really need to prioritize my own well-being. I've offered to help Emily find a temporary place, and I'm even willing to give her some money for a bit. But she can't move in with me. It's not about punishing her or revenge, it's just about keeping the boundaries I need to stay healthy and sane." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, and then turned off my phone. I knew there'd be more arguments, guilt trips, and accusations of being unforgiving. But for now, I needed some space to process everything that went down. As I sit here, I still feel conflicted. So, Reddit, I need your perspective. Am I the asshole for not taking in my stepsister, even though she's desperate? Any insights or judgments would be super appreciated. Thanks for sticking with me this far, Reddit. I really need some outside perspective on this mess. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. Thanks so much for all your thoughtful responses and support. To address a few common questions. 1. Yep, I've suggested family therapy to my parents before. They've always brushed it off, saying we should handle things on our own like a real family. 2. Emily has never acknowledged or apologized for her behavior before. Her apology at my door was the first time she's admitted to treating me badly. 3. For those asking about my mom, she passed away from cancer. It was sudden and aggressive, and we didn't have much time to prepare. I think that's part of why Dad was so eager to remarry and create a perfect blended family. 4. I'm in contact with some of Emily's friends. From what I've heard, she's staying with one of them for now. I'm relieved she's not on the streets, but I still feel guilty. 5. To those suggesting I cut contact with my family entirely, I've considered it. It's complicated, and I'm still working through those feelings in therapy. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It means more than you know to feel heard and validated after so many years of having my feelings dismissed. I'll update if there are any significant developments. *** Update 1. Hey Reddit! First off, thanks so much for the support and advice on my original post. It's been wild seeing how many people related to my story. Honestly, it's been both comforting and heartbreaking, knowing others have dealt with similar family drama. Here's the deal. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and things have gotten pretty intense. I've been drowning in messages and calls from family members ranging from guilt-tripping to straight-up hostility. I've been trying to stand my ground, but man, it's exhausting. I'd heard through the family grapevine that Emily was crashing with a friend. I hoped she'd found another solution and would leave me alone. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. 3 days ago, I was working from home when I heard this huge commotion outside my apartment. At first, I thought it was just noisy neighbors, but then I heard Emily's voice and my heart sank. She was outside my door, clearly wasted, shouting my name and pounding on the door. The smell of alcohol was so strong, I could smell it through the door. Emily's always been a mean drunk, takes after our dad that way. I tried to reason with her, told her to leave, and that we could talk when she was sober. Big mistake. She just got angrier, started yelling about how I was abandoning her, and calling me a terrible sister. Then I heard a thud against the door and realized she was trying to force it open. I panicked. All I could think about was protecting myself and my home, so I called 911. I told them my estranged stepsister was trying to break in, that she was drunk and getting violent. While I was on the phone, Emily kept shouting. I heard something shatter. Pretty sure it was the vase by my door. She was screaming about how selfish I was. Typical Emily, always the victim in her own mind. The wait for the cops felt like forever. I was hiding in my bedroom, jumping at every crash from the hallway. I could hear my neighbors coming out, asking what was going on. Finally, the police showed up. There was some commotion in the hallway, and then they took Emily away. When I came out, the hallway was a mess. My welcome mat was messed up. My favorite vase was in pieces, and there were marks on my door where Emily had tried to force it open. I gave my statement to the cops, showed them the texts and voicemails I'd gotten from Emily. They were pretty understanding, said I'd done the right thing by calling them. They asked if I wanted to press charges, but I was so overwhelmed, I asked for time to think about it. As soon as they left, I just collapsed on my couch. I was shaking, didn't know whether to cry, scream, or just sleep for a week. Then I got a text from Susan, my stepmom. "Hey everyone! Oh man, where do I even start?" So, things have been pretty wild lately. I called the cops on Emily, and boy, did that not go over well. Dad and Susan, my stepmom, basically told me they were super disappointed in me and somehow made the whole thing my fault. Can you believe that? Anyway, I turned off my phone after that mess, cleaned up the disaster, and apologized to my neighbors. After going over everything a million times in my head, I decided to press charges for property damage and the attempted break-in. It wasn't an easy call, but I needed to look out for myself and let Emily know her behavior was way out of line. Fallout was intense. Dad and Susan were beyond pissed, accusing me of tearing the family apart. I got flooded with texts and calls from other family members. Some were on my side. Others thought I was making a big deal out of nothing. Emily, once she was out, went on a full-blown social media rampage, painting herself as the victim of her mean, unforgiving sister. Since then, it's been nonstop drama. Police statements, chats with the prosecutor, endless phone calls from family. Honestly, I'm so drained, and I'm seriously thinking about moving to another city for a fresh start, far away from this family drama. I'm also considering going no contact with Dad and Susan. Their reaction really showed me they'll never respect my boundaries or understand me. It's painful to admit, but maybe the supportive family I've always wished for just isn't going to happen. I hope Emily turns her life around. But for now, I'm just relieved she's out of my life. Still processing everything, but I wanted to update you all and say thanks for the support. Your comments on my first post gave me the strength to stand up for myself. If anyone's been through something similar, or has advice on legal stuff or cutting ties with family, I'm all ears. And if you've made it this far, thanks. It means a lot to feel heard after feeling dismissed for so long. Edit. Wow, the response has been overwhelming. Thanks so much for your support. Some quick updates. 1. I'm looking into a restraining order with my lawyer. 2. I've installed security cameras and changed my locks. Staying with a friend for now. 3. Yes, Emily had her own struggles growing up, but it doesn't excuse her behavior now. Shout out to my boss, who's been super supportive. I've taken some personal days to sort all this out. Thanks again for all the advice. It's been a lifesaver. Update 2. Hey Reddit, back with another update. Things have spiraled even more out of control, and I'm still trying to process everything. Thanks again to everyone who's supported me. It means the world. So it's been about a month since Emily's break-in and my decision to press charges. Just when the flood of family messages started to slow down, I thought things were calming down. Nope, totally wrong. Dad and Susan cut their European anniversary trip short to deal with the situation. My cousin Marilyn called to give me a heads up, saying Dad and Susan were flying back and planning to set things right. When they showed up at my door, it was like they'd aged years in just a few weeks. They barged right in, and what followed was the most painful conversation of my life. Dad ranted about family loyalty and called me selfish and immature. Susan chipped in with her passive-aggressive comments, saying my issues were clouding my judgment. Here's the kicker. They actually suggested that I owed Emily an apology. They called the break-in a misunderstanding and blamed me for escalating things by involving the police. I tried to explain my side, the therapy, the boundaries, even showed them the police report, but they weren't having any of it. They had their version of the story and weren't budging. Then came the ultimatum. Let Emily move in with me and drop the charges, or consider myself disowned and cut out of the will. I broke down completely, pouring out years of hurt and frustration, but it felt like talking to a brick wall. Dad accused me of exaggerating, and Susan minimized my experiences, saying I needed to grow up. The argument ended with Dad disowning me. Just like that, I lost the last threads of the family I'd been trying to hold on to. After they left, I was a wreck, crying my eyes out. The finality of it all hit me hard. The tiny hope I had that one day they'd understand me was gone. The next few days were a blur of numbness and grief. I called out of work and just couldn't face the world. My phone was flooded with messages, some supportive, others blaming me. Emily, of course, went on social media to play the victim, and it hurt seeing all the likes and supportive comments she got. Legally, things are complicated. I'm working with a lawyer to figure out my rights and maybe get a restraining order against Emily because her social media posts are getting threatening. I'm documenting everything, like my lawyer advised. This has been the toughest few weeks of my life. I've questioned everything and battled a lot of guilt and self-doubt. To those in similar situations, wondering if it's worth standing up for yourself even if it means losing family, it is. Your mental health and well-being are worth it. Not sure what the future holds, but for the first time in a while, I feel in control of my own story. No more being the family scapegoat. This might be my last update, so thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. Edit. Wow, thanks for all the support. To answer some common questions. Yes, I'm documenting everything. Most of my mom's side of the family believes Dad and Emily's story. And to the awesome person who offered to adopt me, you made me laugh for the first time in days. Thank you. Seriously, thanks to everyone. Your support has been a lifeline.